Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar, Engaging Customers Throughout the 7 Steps of the Shopper Journey. I'm Adam Blair, the editor of Retail Touchpoints, and I'll be moderating today's session. As a retailer, you hope that every shopper's journey ends in conversion, but it's rarely a straight line from initial inspiration to purchase, particularly with today's multiple channels and touch points. Understanding buyer intent and engaging with customers throughout all phases of the shopper journey are both critical to retail success. This session will provide practical advice and pro tips from maximizing engagement throughout all 7 phases of the shopper journey, from inspiration and awareness all the way through to conversion and loyalty building. Our speakers today will be sharing lots of information about this topic, and we encourage you to share some of your own data points and takeaways on Twitter. Social information for me and our speakers is available on this slide. The session is part of the 2020 Connected Consumer Series. During this series, attendees have the opportunity to hear from leading industry experts who are discussing the most important topics on retailers' minds today. By registering for one session, attendees will have access to all complimentary presentations, live and on demand. For those of you who may be new to Retail Touchpoints, here's a quick overview. We're an all-digital media company publishing 2 weekly online newsletters, daily news, special reports, and multimedia presentations. If you haven't done so already, please subscribe to our weekly newsletter. We also welcome input and feedback through traditional means, phone and email, as well as social media, LinkedIn, Twitter, and Facebook. Our web address is www.retailtouchpoints.com. For today's presentation, we're using the ON24 platform. Right now, you should be viewing the ON24 dashboard, which shows the live viewing screen. By clicking on the Questions widget on the right-hand side of the screen, you can type in questions during the live presentation and press Submit. You can also find a widget named Resources under Questions. Here you can download assets our presenters have provided. All you have to do is click on the resource and it will download automatically. A few housekeeping details before we get started. The presentation is slated for approximately 40 minutes with time for live questions at the end. Again, I encourage you to submit those questions as they come to mind so they rise to the top during our Q&A session. We'll get to as many questions as we can. I also encourage you to follow up with our speakers on social media if you want to discuss some of the session's takeaways in more detail. Also, the webinar is being recorded, and all attendees will receive an archive link to the presentation so they can go back and review or share with colleagues. You'll also have access to the slide deck through SlideShare. Now I'm going to introduce our speakers. Bradley Hearn manages content marketing at ChannelAdvisor. During his tenure there, he's written extensively and delivered presentations about the changing e-commerce landscape. From the explosion of third-party marketplaces to the rise of brands and the blurring of digital marketing channels, he's had a front-row seat to the ongoing e-commerce evolution. With more than 20 years of marketing and e-commerce experience, Greg Ives leads the product marketing efforts at ChannelAdvisor. As a product evangelist, he's passionate about educating others on the value ChannelAdvisor's people and technology bring to the marketplace. And whether it's by spearheading a go-to-market campaign for a new solution, or simply crafting a helpful piece of marketing collateral, Greg enjoys collaborating with members from every team of the organization. Now I'm going to hand it over to Brad.
All right, thanks, Adam. So what are we going to talk about today? First, Greg and I will provide a little overview of the e-commerce landscape, including some of the key trends and drivers of consumer behavior in this industry in constant motion. And then we'll break down what the consumer journey looks like and how you should think about your consumers. And then we'll give a little snapshot about who ChannelAdvisor is and what we do, and if we have time, we'll answer a little Q&A, as Adam mentioned. And one thing we wanted to address up top, obviously, is the current COVID-19 global pandemic is having rippling effects across the economy right now, our institutions, and our general way of life. This analysis and these best practices were obviously prepared pre-COVID-19 pandemic. And while consumers are consumers and there's plenty of shopping going on right now, it's still slightly different reality, and not every example in this presentation applies exactly right now. So we hope that once all these events pass us by, these specific shopping examples will ring true again. And with that, let's get started. Greg, I'll let you kick it off.
Thanks, Bradley. Before we break down the specific phases of the customer journey, I think it'd be helpful to understand some of the key trends and drivers that are influencing the way that we shop. So first, this one should resonate with everybody online today because we experience this every day when we make a purchase. We have more products to consider, more channels to browse, more devices to access, and more information to rely on. Now, as you can see, 73% of the customers out there use multiple channels during their shopping journey. I'd even venture to guess that that number is pretty conservative. We're also more demanding and impatient than before, whether it's wanting to engage directly with the brand or simply expecting, a package to be delivered the next day. We've definitely been spoiled to compare to, how we used to shop just a few years back. So what does this changing landscape mean for us? Well, they're now having to compete in a complex universe of evolving channels across digital marketing, global marketplaces, retail dropship connect, and shipping and fulfillment partners. The e-commerce landscape is so complicated to navigate that brands and retailers are having to adjust the way they approach their operations. In many cases, they're seeking a more centralized approach to help streamline efforts. All right, so Bradley, what's going on? It feels like sort of a chicken and egg type situation, right? Is consumer behavior changing the e-commerce landscape, or is the landscape and all of this evolving technology changing consumer behavior?
It's a good question, Greg. To paraphrase Forrest Gump, it's a little bit of both. Both are happening at the same time. Technology is evolving, obviously, and that's causing consumer behavior to evolve and our expectations to grow and get more demanding. And then companies and channels and more technology evolve to meet our growing, demanding behavior, which causes us to evolve even more and expect more and demand more, and on and on and on. It's a complicated dynamic that keeps perpetuating itself and then having side effects and implications for brands and retailers that are trying to keep up with all of this.
Yep.
So
I tend to agree there.
So right now, we want to take a quick look at some of these key trends to watch. These trends are both driving this change and are also byproducts of the changing and churning landscape. And there's just a few of these waves that are rippling across e-commerce right now. So, Greg, you start it off.
Yeah, well, of course there's mobile first that we need to talk about, right? It was around 13 years ago that the iPhone was introduced. But think about just over the last decade, the impact that it's had on e-commerce. It's just been absolutely massive. So smartphones have completely changed the way people shop, obviously. It's not just the convenience factor that's driving change, which, don't get me wrong, it's huge. But it's also the immediate access to data that has made everyone a more informed shopper. And it's only accelerating. For the first time, mobile is projected to account for half of all online sales in 2020.
Absolutely. And a major byproduct of mobile's influence could obviously be seen last year in Google's big push around shopping actions, which has also now been renamed Google Shopping, which, if you don't already know, it acts like a marketplace for shoppers that are searching on Google, where they have your stored information and you find something you like and it's tap, tap, buy. Very easy, a seamless consumer experience. Amazon perfected this whole kind of one-handed checkout, if you will, model years ago, and that's why everybody loves Amazon. It gave users an easy experience on mobile devices. They had stored information. It's basically shopping with your thumb. 3 taps and you're done. Google responded with this marketplace of their own last year, which allows consumers to just see something on Google, and rather than having to navigate to some website and putting in all your credit card information, all your information is stored across these devices, and so you can purchase seamlessly. And similarly, social media has gotten into the game as well. Facebook got in the game last year with checkout on Instagram, showing just a natural continuation of this trend with stored information, shopping with your thumb, tap, tap, buy, or if you're index finger. But even without Instagram checkout, we're seeing a sharp increase in shopping ad spend on social platforms. There's tons of new ad formats out there and tons of dollars getting allocated to stuff like Facebook and Instagram as well. Even TikTok, which you probably have heard of, might be getting in the conversation soon as well, and they're experimenting with some advertising. If you have teenagers, you probably already know what TikTok is, but for the rest of you, you will know soon enough. It was one of the most downloaded apps last year.
No, it's not just mobile devices that are impacting shopping. New technology like voice assistants are quickly gaining share out there. We see them everywhere now. I mean, even my thermostat has an Alexa built in, right? Then there's the rise of chatbots, which is proving to be absolutely critical in giving an outlet for customers to engage back to the seller.
Absolutely, Greg. And like one quick little point there, like sometimes China is looked at as like sort of a crystal ball of like where America is going in 15, 20 years from a technology standpoint. And chatbots is a really good example of that. I mean, chatbots are consumers interact almost exclusively with these chatbots when they're interacting with a brand, and I can see that actually becoming a big influence over here as well.
Yeah, absolutely. You also mentioned instant gratification earlier, right? So I think what's happening on the delivery front is a perfect example of that too. So fast, free shipping, obviously is the key to helping Amazon level the playing field with brick and mortar stores. As you can see, Amazon was first out of the gate, but other retailers like Target and Walmart are quickly catching up. Next day delivery is becoming the new norm. Same day is even being tested. And we're seeing carriers move to a 7-day delivery schedule to keep up and remain competitive. Another form of quick delivery that brands are turning to is what's buy online, pick up in store, also known as BOPIS, or click and collect. I think I like click and collect a little bit more than BOPIS, but it's something to be aware of, and they're one and the same. Essentially, it's when a customer makes a purchase online and they're able to pick it up in the store the same day. Now, this is a win for everyone involved, right? Warehouses and shipping costs are neutralized for brands and retailers. The stores see an uptick in foot traffic, and the customer is able to order a product and pick it up within hours. Look for click and collect to become even more widespread than it already is. Now, these are just some of the bigger changes we're witnessing across the landscape that are redefining the customer journey. I mean, we could have an entire webinar dedicated just to this. So instead, let's hop into some real-world examples of what the path to purchase can look like. Now, Bradley, I know that you're familiar with my love of astronomy. You sit next to me. Unfortunately, you have to listen to all my stories about,
Absolutely. No, it's great. It's great. It's great. Just for the listener, if you want to learn about astronomy, Greg's your guy. He's got like 8 apps on his phone, and it's all interesting.
Well, recently my oldest daughter, she's kind of taken a liking to it as well, and she's always asking about, the stars, the constellation, and some of the planets that she's seen up in the sky and wants to learn more about them. So, I think back to my days of having a telescope when I was a kid, and was thinking to myself, something, this is probably something it's time to invest into a nice one, or invest in a nice one, so I can share that with my children as well. So I started looking around, but the problem was I had zero awareness. I didn't really know who the good brands were anymore, or the types of telescope I needed. I did know that I wanted to support, hopefully like a niche retailer versus a big box. There's, in terms of urgency, none at all. I really just wanted to make sure that I was making the right purchase if I was going to invest, a sizable amount into this. I didn't want to rush into the decision. So this is what my journey kind of looked like, right? So let's jump into that. I Googled, right out of the gate, telescopes for beginners. It's a good place to start, right? And then that led me down the YouTube path. Watched review after review about the types and brands and the newest models that are available. And then from there, I took it a step further. I was starting to whittle down which ones I wanted, right? And I even joined a couple of astronomy forums and asked around, like, okay, what is your experience with this model versus this model? What would you recommend? And as I made my way down the funnel even farther, I kind of narrowed down to a couple of online retailers, these little niche sites. And one in particular had this thing called a non-commissioned advisor, right? When I talked to him, he wasn't even trying to sell me anything. He was just strictly there to help and giving me advice. He didn't make commission on anything. He just wanted to make sure that I was happy which really resonated with me and ultimately caused me to come back to that site a week or two later and make the purchase, right? And so that whole customer journey was about 4 weeks after I really started thinking about, like, I really would think I want a telescope. So, if you kind of look at a glance, right, by the numbers, that was what started off with a search engine across multiple devices, probably a dozen YouTube reviews, a couple of astronomy forums, hundreds and hundreds of reviews I plowed through. And then, after kind of narrowing down my search to these online stores and talking to a retail expert, I left a happy camper, and I've been enjoying it ever since. Now, my wife, on the other hand, like I said, that last bullet right there, this thing is a behemoth. It is taking up our entire coat closet downstairs. She's not so thrilled.
That's a great example, Greg. And on the other end of the spectrum, I had a shopping journey recently as well, where somebody had given me an old camping hammock, and I needed a way to hang it up between some trees, so I needed some straps for it. I did not know about any brands or care about any brands. I just kind of wanted to find something quick and easy. So I started with a broad query on Amazon. I think I literally searched for hammock straps. I saw the first sponsored product that kind of came up there on the far left. But that product also showed up in the organic search results. You can see it by the second one from the right. It showed up twice because they had optimized product content, and we'll get into that. But I quickly compared reviews, prices, specs, kind of saw what I wanted. I had a $20 gift card anyway, so it was like, perfect. This is exactly $20. It has like 3,000 5-star reviews, sold. And I converted within minutes. So as opposed to Greg, mine was one channel, one device, my laptop, 2 trees, and 10 minutes is being generous, because it was probably more like 5. So just to recap those kind of journeys and kind of what we talked about so far, you've got this unpredictable, ever-evolving consumer behavior that can span any number of channels over any specific amount of time, as we just saw with mine and Greg's examples. We also have growing consumer demands, while at the same time, you've got an e-commerce ecosystem and industry that is just exploding constantly, with new channels to list on and keep up with, new competitors, new third-party providers to send product and order data to. So it's overwhelming. So what are you as a brand or retailer to do? Well, in short, obviously, you just want to get your products in front of the most consumers as possible. You want to be everywhere. Unfortunately, that's not as easy as it used to be, because back in the 20th century, defined by the Madison Avenue golden era of Mad Men, you took your product, you came up with a catchy and effective way to market it, and then you blasted that product story to the masses. And in those days, that was radio and TV, and it worked. But then came the internet, and then what in theory is the most mass market medium ever created. I mean, the internet is for everyone. It also fragmented everyone. So everyone is on different channels doing a million different things, and we're more siloed than we've ever been before. Which is tough, because consumers want you to serve them the right product at the right place at the right time, but we don't know where they are because there are so many places that they could be at any given time. It's hard to optimize your selling strategies on every single channel and get everything right on every single channel. So we think the solution is not to get overwhelmed thinking about this channel or that channel. Yes, you need to redefine your strategies across every single channel you're selling on, but every channel doesn't apply to every single retailer or brand, or every industry and product type, as we saw in Greg's and my story. Brands and retailers should restructure their thinking, not by channel, but around their consumer, and more specifically, their buyer's intent. Because even though the consumer journey isn't a straight line, their buyer intent is. For every single customer, in every single category, in every single situation, they all go through the same linear thought process. Inspiration, awareness, evaluation, consideration, motivation, conversion, and loyalty. It might take them minutes, as it did with me and the hammock straps, and I went through all of these, by the way, or it could take weeks or months or years, as it did with Greg and his telescope. There isn't and can't be a one-size-fits-all approach to every brand and retailer. There are too many channels and variables, too many places to find and lose your customers. It's better to map your consumer's intent first and then construct strategies to reach them along every step of that journey. With that, let's break down this journey. Greg, you want to take it off?
Yeah, absolutely. So again, I do want to preface this by saying, depending on your product or your category, not all of these phases will apply, right? The lines do get a little bit blurred in between a few of these, but just like the examples that we gave, every consumer does go through them at varying speeds, right? So just kind of keep that in mind. So let's jump into the first one, right? Phase 1, inspiration. So inspiration is that moment that can strike at any time, when you're driven to discover a new product. It could be when you're driving by a store, or while you're browsing a friend's social feed, or even during a conversation with a coworker. For instance, now all of a sudden I want to go out and buy a hammock. Thanks, man. Most of the time, there's no rhyme or reason to it, which can obviously present a challenge to sellers. How are you supposed to cover this, right? Well, Bradley is going to get into that, okay? So what are some of the best practices to ensure that you're front and center when that moment of inspiration strikes, Bradley?
Yeah, just to mention here again at the top, like we'll outline some of these best practices for each phase, but the list of strategies for each phase could take all day. We could literally do a webinar about every single one of these phases, and maybe that's a good idea. Maybe we should do that. But these are just some tips to get your thinking started. So when it comes to inspiration, you just want to be top of mind when it's time, when the consumer is ready. You're casting a wide net. This one is really broad, and it kind of bleeds into the next one, which is awareness. Like this one could be called pre-awareness. It is both anticipating awareness and instigating that awareness in consumers. So you're trying to inspire someone to want to buy something they don't already know that they want. That whether that's through an ad or your social media or just generating word of mouth through reviews or just getting people talking so other people learn about or are inspired to want to buy your type of product. Maybe your products lend themselves to deal seekers. So get in front of those deal seekers on those deal sites so they become inspired when their eyes come across your product. Maybe you have products that lend themselves to how-to videos. And so like you want to create a YouTube channel that shows people how to do things, and in doing or fixing those kind of things, they use your product and they're like, oh, I didn't know I needed a specific type of wrench or whatever you sell. It could take all kinds of different paths depending on your brand reputation or your product type, your product cost, but the wider net that you cast, the more fish you'll catch when they happen to swim by. So we'll tip for each of these, and the pro tip here would be if you have a product that you want to increase the awareness of or increase the pre-awareness of, if you will, is to bundle it with a better known product. You can do that in several different ways. You can take two different product SKUs and bundle them together into a single SKU so people can purchase it together. A basic example would be like a cell phone and a charger, or a cell phone and a case, into one SKU. Or you can do recommended things. Customers who bought this also liked this other product, which I think Amazon does that automatically on the marketplace, but you can definitely do that on your .com, or you can control what you say. You can, for any person that buys this particular shirt, you can recommend a sweater or pants or whatever to go with it.
Stuff. All right, so now that the consumer is inspired, the second phase is awareness. This is when they're taking action to learn more about a product, right? That could be Googling a product for the first time or visiting a brand's website to get a better understanding of what they actually want. So, Bradley, why don't you walk us through a few best practices there?
Absolutely. So with awareness, you're still casting a wide net, except this time people are actually searching for a product. They're probably using broad keywords. This is kind of where I was when I was just searching on Amazon for hammock straps. I didn't know about brands, so I just was searching for a product. So although depending on your product category, they could know, or your business, they could know your brand name. So it's important to structure your advertising campaigns structure branded campaigns and non-branded campaigns separately and adjust your bids accordingly. This is also where you need coverage, where people are searching specifically for your brand, some of the long tail keywords, if you will. Also, there are so many different types of ads you can do, so many different types of channels, so it's best to kind of rethink your channels. Are you on the right ones? Facebook has a ton of new ad types, stories ads, collections ads, dynamic ads, carousel ads, as does Google. So test, experiment, tweak, just get started and start experimenting. Maybe Amazon advertising maybe Amazon is the best place for you, or it's the only channel you sell on, so you want to devote most of your ad budget to Amazon advertising, and that's fine too. But just make sure you start doing it and start tweaking. So, pro tip for this is, speaking of Amazon advertising, Amazon sponsored products, you have the ability to target different ASINs, whether you want to target your products or your competitors' products. You can also target by category as well. But for example, if you find a product that is similar to yours, like this suitcase example here, if you find maybe the product has a higher price than yours but also inferior reviews, that's a perfect opportunity because you can target that ASIN so your ad shows up on that product page listing. So as consumers land on that and see its bad reviews and its high price, your product is right there as an alternative, a cheaper, more well-reviewed alternative.
Right. Well, we talked about inspiration. We've talked about the awareness phase. So let's move on to phase number 3. That's evaluation, right? This is when the customer has a better understanding of what they want, okay? This is when they begin to evaluate the products they see, if their interest has already been validated. So if not, then what products should they be considering, okay? So Bradley, what can sellers do to help prepare for this phase?
So as Greg, as you just mentioned, it is where they're evaluating, where they are looking for information. So this is where your product detail pages need to be optimized and robust. Everything that you want to communicate to the consumer, you need to do this right now in this phase. So that is making sure your titles, your descriptions, your item specifics are all optimized using every possible field that you can on marketplaces, or your website is organized in a way that makes sense for people scrolling and searching and looking for information. If your product lends itself to it, multiple high resolution images, hopefully like videos showing how it works. And then from a back-end standpoint, making sure your product data is consistent across all channels. So on one channel maybe the sweater is midnight, and one channel like the sweater is called obsidian, and one channel it's called black. I don't know. And so making sure your product data is consistent so consumers don't have a confusing experience as they're jumping across channels. I know that I've had that problem with stuff before. At the same phase, as they're evaluating whether they want to buy from you, shipping times, return policies, warranties, all this stuff needs to be very visible. So for brands, if you are a registered brand on Amazon, an Amazon store is a good time for this as they evaluate, because you can cultivate the buyer experience within your store on Amazon. One best practice here is to encourage reviews. Obviously, you cannot solicit reviews or like bribe anyone for your reviews as per the guidelines on the marketplaces, but you can encourage people to review your product, and you should, because that leads a pro tip, which is using negative feedback or any feedback in general to your advantage. So what are people saying about your product? They're like, oh, I got this shirt and it was a completely different color or texture or fit than as advertised. Use that feedback in your titles, in your descriptions, in your bullets. Once you get a better idea of what people are looking for, if you find that people are confused, you can better optimize your listings. Riley,
so we're about halfway through the funnel right now, right? This journey, and we're at phase 4, the consideration phase. So that's when the customer isn't quite ready to make a purchase yet, right? But they're willing to take that next step and engage with a brand or retailer. For instance, they'll sign up for a newsletter in hopes of getting a discount, or they'll add an item to a shopping cart to see, what the total might be after taxes and shipping. So Bradley, let's talk about the ways that that sellers can be prepared for this.
Sure. This part of the funnel can come at days, weeks, months, or in my case with the hammock, minutes after initial awareness. It depends on the product. So this is where in the last stage people were kind of like, so what is it? This is the product I want to buy, and this is more. And then this consideration is like, should I buy this? Is this the best deal? Are there other competitors out there? So pricing is very, very important at this stage. It's almost standard at this point to use an algorithm or a repricer, automated repricer to maximize profit. We recommend velocity repricing and algorithmic repricing to automatically change your bids within certain parameters to maximize your profit. As always, encourage reviews and ratings, as people will leave reviews, be like, this is a great deal for the money and all that kind of stuff. Diversify your ad formats so that your products show up across different channels. As maybe people they've evaluated and they think you have a good product, but they just haven't bought then. Like, it's still a good time to just stay top of mind as they continue to shop. And we'll talk about retargeting in the next one as well. One last one, Google ad extensions. Google obviously allows you to add extensions to your ads, so catch their eye with whether it's promotions or sales or free shipping or whatever you think will catch your consumer's eye. Now's the time. And a pro tip here, and obviously this is an example that will be dated, and with the current COVID-19 pandemic crisis, not a lot of people are shopping in stores, but this is sort of a tip to, if you have physical locations, give your consumers another option for purchase. Maybe the reason that they don't want to buy your product is because they want to touch and feel or sample in some way your product. So use Google local inventory ads to allow that will allow you to geo-target your customers and show them the best brick-and-mortar location that can purchase your product. And if you don't have a physical store, promote your free returns policy. People just want a good, easy experience. Great.
Well, the next phase is the motivation phase, which, it's really closely tied to that consideration phase, right? So this can be that make or break moment during the buyer journey. It's that moment when the customer begins to kind of teeter because they're not 100% sure if they're making the right purchase or not. So with the right reminder, or even better, an incentive, consumers that are on the fence can be persuaded to finally hit that buy button. So Bradley, do you have some tactics that sellers can use to persuade these consumers to return?
Yeah, I mean, in addition to all the best practices to this point, all this sort of awareness and consideration and evaluation, like just optimizing your listings and making sure you have all the right information communicated to your consumers, you also want to retarget. This phase is all about they were interested, they came by, they were interested at one point, maybe they were even in the shopping cart and they abandoned it and ran away. So retargeting ads, if you have their information, you can send retargeting emails or cart abandonment emails of like, hey, you were interested in this once upon a time. Are you still interested? There's actually one well-known brand that does that to me sometimes, where I will look at, basically, I'll look at some shirts and then they'll say, hey, take another look at it the next day. But for retargeting ads, you want to keep your brand in front of your consumers like as long as possible until they complete the purchase. But you don't want to treat them all the same. You want to split your retargeting efforts according to what they did. So if they were just bouncing around your site, if they actually were in a cart, if they were clicking on specific products, the more that you can personalize that, the better. And I know that sounds expensive, but there's plenty of cheap and free technology out there that can help you retarget your customers. And speaking of that, the pro tip, the right motivation to entice consumers to complete a purchase, it's going to take some trial and error. So when you're doing this retargeting, it's all about A/B testing. That's the only way you'll get better is to test certain things and tweak and improve and optimize along the way. So split text your variations of ad and subject line copy, or text next like incentive amounts, typically 10 to 15% off. But just experiment and see what works for your product.
Yeah, that's a big one, and that I feel like that split testing can be applied kind of universally across a lot of the campaigns and selling efforts that that retailers and brands come across. Right, that's good advice. All right, so now we are finally at the moment of truth, conversion. The consumer has finally made up their mind and they're excited about hitting that buy button. It's at this point the only thing preventing them from crossing the finish line is a poor checkout experience, okay, which unfortunately is surprisingly common. So Bradley, what are some steps that sellers can take to prevent this?
All right, well, so as Greg mentioned, as far as conversion goes, you want to make it seamless. And luckily, if you sell on marketplaces, the marketplaces already have this conversion experience down to a science. Like, it's easy and trustworthy. But on your .com, that's a different story. People have now been conditioned to expect these great experiences that they get on these marketplaces, and will get spooked like fish if they encounter something that doesn't meet their expectations. So it's all these standard best practices where you want to give them an option to check out as a guest. Don't make them sign up for an account. If you can store their information, great. If not, provide multiple payment options. Keep the questions to a minimum. No surprise fees or costs. It should look like a professional website. I mean, that seems like it should go without saying, but like, make sure there's no spelling or grammatical errors. I was looking for something the other night, and the site just was such a mess. I was like, I don't think this is a real site. I'm going to leave. Show which stage they're at with like progress bars. Like, the worst thing is to answer like question after question after question and like have like 5 more to go. Just let them know where they're at in their checkout experience. Keep the back button, and just a simpler process, the better. Like, learn from Amazon and Google or Google Shopping now for a better experience. And I'm going to take this pro tip because I think you had experience with this recently. Yes, I did. So, I was all excited about buying this telescope, right? And, quickly realized that I wanted to add a few accessories to it. So went to a site, found exactly what I was looking for, hit purchase, and a couple hours later, I get an email back that says, oh, hey, we're actually out of stock and that item is back ordered and it's going to be a few weeks. Talk about disappointment. The air had been completely taken out of my sales with this, and all of a sudden, we went from a positive overall experience with this retailer, was now like I felt kind of like duped. I'm like, well, if I'd known that it was going to take 3 or 4 weeks to get this, I wouldn't have made this purchase. So, it's just not a good experience. And so this is where we can turn this into a pro tip, right? You don't want any surprises out there. Be completely transparent about inventory and delivery times up front. Ideally, before they hit the buy button, and even before that, right? When they're on the product information page, a product page, you should hopefully have your inventory count there, or at least say, hey, this item is currently back ordered. That would have prevented a lot of disappointment and negative feelings towards this site that I had. So, yep, that would be my pro tips for this. Excellent. All right. Yeah, we're now at that final stage, and it's that holy grail that all brands and retailers strive for, right? It's that customer loyalty. While the sale may be done, a new journey with your customer is just beginning, right? So examples of loyalty include repeat purchases, positive reviews, customer referrals. It's what we all strive for. So Bradley, why don't you kind of walk us through what the retailers can do here? Yeah, I mean, as everyone knows, again, like study after study shows how much cheaper it is to retain a current or past customer than it is to get a new customer. So treat them right, and they'll come back, hopefully. So give them a good experience like after they've clicked the purchase button. Update them on their shipped package. Let them know where, like when it was shipped, where it is. If you're not shipping that yourself, providing a link to UPS or FedEx or whoever you have shipping it. Send a thank you immediately. Respond quickly to their questions. Personalize their email marketing. Let them know that you know what they bought. You know, of like, thank you for buying XYZ products. When you're marketing to them in the future, of like, hey, thank you for buying this. It's always weird to get an email from a company advertising the product that you already bought from them. So just keep that in mind. Maintain your consistent brand social presence, so once they become customers, they can share and follow and stuff and become evangelists of your brand, and ask them for their feedback, as we talked about earlier. So a pro tip here, customers always want to feel appreciated and part of something unique. So if you can, create free loyalty clubs that only the customers can join. Provide advantages to members, whether it's discounts, early access to deals, updates, events, and then we keep the loyalty program simple and focused. It shouldn't take up much time on their behalf, but they should feel like they're getting something out of it. Just to kind of wrap up and have all the phases here again, from inspiration to awareness to evaluation, consideration, motivation, conversion to loyalty. It's important to understand your consumers at each of these, to lay out these different phases and think about your consumers at every single one of them. So you can kind of identify the many places where like your particular business can find consumers, where you can target them or retarget them, where you can influence them to purchase, where you might be losing them along the way, and where you can convert them. I think you want to give us a little shout out about ChannelAdvisor?
Yeah, absolutely. You know, we have saved a little bit of time for questions, and we've got a few questions coming in right now. I just want to take 1 minute to talk about what we do here at ChannelAdvisor, a little bit about who we are. So our mission is to connect and optimize the world's commerce, right? Do this by helping brands and retailers better execute against their multi-channel marketplace, digital marketing, and fulfillment strategies, all within a single platform. But we're more than just a platform. As your partner in e-commerce success, we're here to help you efficiently acquire more customers and increase sales. Since 2001, we've helped our customers from leading global brands and retailers to mid-sized businesses and entrepreneurs grow. If you'd like to learn more, email us at marketinginfo@channeladvisor.com. Again, that's marketinginfo@channeladvisor.com. All right, so like I said, we did save a little bit of time to answer.
Thanks, Greg. For anyone who's interested in learning more about their digital marketing efforts, what you're doing right, possibly what you can improve upon, ChannelAdvisor offers a complimentary advertising analysis. Our digital marketing experts will take a quick look under your hood and let you know what you're doing right and possibly what you could improve on Amazon, Google, Facebook, and show you new opportunities to help you meet and exceed your goals. So if you're interested, check out channeladvisor.com/advertising-analysis. That's all from us. I wanted to thank everyone for listening. I know we're about to get into some Q&A, but if you have any questions that we don't get to today, you'd like to ask us, please email marketinginfo@channeladvisor.com, and be sure to check out channeladvisor.com for any upcoming webinars or events that we're having. And with that, over to Adam.
All right, great. Thank you, guys. Greg and Bradley, really fantastic and super detailed presentation with a lot of good information. As you mentioned, we are getting some questions. The first one is, which of the 7 phases would you recommend prioritizing? I guess if you have to make a choice or you're looking to focus your resources.
Yeah, I'll hop on that one. I would say that it's a safe practice to really focus on actually one of the last parts of the journey, and that's the conversion, right? You don't want to spend all of the resources and man hours and budget on attracting customers to your site, convincing them to make a purchase, and then have them, for whatever reason, not cross the finish line due to a bad experience, a bad checkout experience. So I would say that you want to make sure that the house is in order first before anything else, and make sure that you are ready for those customers when they get there. There's nothing worse than spending all of those dollars and all of those hours and hours of time on those campaigns, only to have them at the last minute leave and go to a competitor to complete their purchase.
Sure, that's a double disappointment. They've spent a lot of time, you've spent a lot of resources, and then as you say, you don't get across the finish line. Okay. We've got another question. For the awareness phase, what ad types should retailers focus on?
That's a good question. I'll take this one. There are so many different ad types that you can use depending on the channel. One specific one I'll call out at that awareness phase is sponsored brands on Amazon, within Amazon advertising. Sponsored brands is available to brands who, if you're in the Amazon brand registry, so if you are the brand of your product and not just a reseller, you can. These sponsored brand ads are great for at the awareness phase, because they allow you to kind of advertise multiple products at once. You can choose a few products. You can throw out one of your company's value props and have your logo, and it's really good sort of top of the funnel stuff. And then those sponsored brands, you can use those ads to drive people to your Amazon store, which is unique about them. And within your Amazon store, you can kind of control the experience, the shopping experience, and promote different products how you would like. And it's you can kind of control the look and feel. So I really think that sponsored brands, I think they're becoming more and more used because they're really, really effective.
Great, thank you. Looks like we've got time for just one more question. This one came in. How can a seller get started on Instagram checkout?
Great question. Unfortunately, I think Instagram checkout is still gated. It's still in a closed beta with Facebook right now. If you are a ChannelAdvisor customer, email your account manager, and they can get you on the list to be next to trial that. But unfortunately, if you are not, I think that they will open it up soon, hopefully this year, to all brands. But right now, they're still playing it very, very close.
Well, thank you both, Greg and Bradley, for, as I said, a terrific presentation. Unfortunately, we are out of time for today. If you didn't get an answer to your specific question, the speakers will be able to follow up with you after the presentation. And we also hope that you'll join us for the next CCS presentation, which is titled From Personalization to Individualization, 5 Ways Brands Are Tailoring Customer Experiences. That session is going to begin at 3 p.m. Eastern Time today, April 7th. Until then, please enjoy the rest of your day.